Hello, esteemed gentlemen. The world doesn't turn men cold. It just teaches them the cost of being warm. There comes a point when a man stops asking, "Why do people do this?" and starts asking, "Why did I ever expect anything different?" That's when everything changes. Here's a fact. A Sigma male doesn't start out cold. He's made that way, one disappointment at a time. It's not a dramatic movie transformation where he wakes up one day and decides to be heartless. No, it's a slow, merciless evolution, like water carving stone. Except in this case, the water is betrayal, and the stone is his soul. At first, he gives people the benefit of the doubt, but life has a way of turning that into a joke, the kind where he's the punchline. Every fake friend, every one-sided relationship, every moment where he stood strong for others only to be abandoned when he needed them, it all adds up. And then, one day, he simply stops playing the game. This isn't about rebellion. It's not some edgy, I don't care about anything act. It's a defense mechanism forged by experience, sharpened by observation, and sealed with indifference. So how does it happen? How does a man who once had warmth in his heart become emotionally untouchable? Let's break it down, step by step, scar by scar. Number 1, the emotional bankruptcies of others. Most people assume that love, friendship, and loyalty are built on something deep, genuine connection, mutual respect, shared experiences. But Sigma males learn, often the hard way, that in many cases these things are just transactions in disguise. At first, they don't question it. When someone is kind, they assume it's because they care. When a friend sticks around, they believe it's out of loyalty. When a partner expresses love, they take it at face value. But time reveals an ugly truth. Most affection comes with an invisible price tag. A Sigma male starts to notice the patterns. The friend who was always there suddenly disappears the moment they stop being useful. The partner who seemed devoted loses interest once their needs aren't being met. The people who once praised them go silent the moment there's nothing left to gain. It's not always malicious. It's just how most people operate. They invest in relationships based on what they get out of them, not because of pure, selfless connection. Slowly, the Sigma male starts withdrawing. He stops expecting people to stick around when there's nothing in it for them. He doesn't get upset when loyalty proves conditional, he just adapts. If most relationships are transactional, then he stops transacting. He stops offering parts of himself in exchange for temporary warmth. And this is where the real shift happens. People start to notice his emotional distance, his refusal to play the game. They call him cold, detached, even heartless. But what they don't realize is that he's simply responding to the reality they showed him. He's not cruel, he's just done pretending. The tragic part? Deep down, he probably still hopes to be proven wrong. But experience tells him otherwise. Every time he lets his guard down, the same cycle repeats. Eventually he learns that expecting nothing from people is the only way to avoid disappointment. So he stops engaging, stops needing, stops hoping. Not out of bitterness, but out of sheer survival. And that's when it happens. His heart doesn't just grow cold, it becomes untouchable. Number 2, the realization that emotions are a commodity. From the moment a person wakes up, they are bombarded with calculated attempts to hijack their emotions. Advertisers don't just sell products, they sell fear, desire, and insecurity. Social media doesn't connect people. It feeds on their need for validation. Even relationships, whether romantic or platonic, often come with an agenda, whether it's attention, status, or emotional labor. Sigma males are different because they see through it all. They notice how every industry, every influencer, every cleverly worded message is designed to trigger an emotional response. The news thrives on outrage. Entertainment thrives on addiction. Even dating apps are designed to keep people chasing attention rather than finding genuine connection. At first, a Sigma male may still fall into the trap. He might believe in the sincerity of certain people or assume that emotions are still exchanged in good faith. But experience has a way of sharpening his instincts. He starts to recognize the patterns, the subtle manipulations in conversations, the guilt tactics, the emotional baiting. And once he sees it, he can't unsee it. Over time, he stops reacting the way people expect him to. When someone tries to guilt him, he remains unaffected. When society pushes fear, he remains calm. When manipulative people try to extract an emotional response from him, whether it's through drama, provocation, or fake affection, he gives them nothing. This is when the labels begin. People call him cold, distant, unfeeling. But in reality, he isn't emotionless. He's just immune to manipulation. He no longer lets external forces dictate his reactions. He controls his emotions rather than letting them be a currency that others can spend. The irony? The more emotionally untouchable he becomes, the more people desperately try to break through his defenses. They can't stand that he won't play along. And that's exactly why he remains the way he is, because once he realized emotions were a commodity, he chose to stop trading altogether. Number 3. The slow death of idealism. Sigma males don't start off cold. In the beginning, they believe in things like loyalty, honesty, and deep human connection. They think friendships are built on trust. Love is about something real, and the world rewards those who operate with integrity. But reality has a way of grinding that optimism into dust. It doesn't happen overnight. The death of a Sigma male's idealism is slow, almost surgical, cut by cut, betrayal by betrayal. At first, he excuses it. A friend stabs him in the back. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. A partner plays mind games. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. A boss takes credit for his work. That's just how the world works, right? But the pattern keeps repeating. The same types of people, the same types of situations, over and over again. And at some point, he stops making excuses. He stops telling himself that things will change. Instead, he accepts the harsh truth. Most people are self-serving, and the world doesn't operate on fairness. It operates on leverage. This realization isn't dramatic, it's exhausting. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't declare war on humanity. He just stops expecting anything different. That's when the shift happens. The warmth in his heart starts to cool. He no longer believes in unconditional loyalty because he's seen how quickly people switch sides when it benefits them. He no longer romanticizes love because he's watched how easily attraction fades when there's no personal gain involved. He stops trusting institutions, workplaces, and leadership because he's seen how power corrupts even the so-called good ones. The worst part? He doesn't even grieve his lost idealism. By the time it's gone, he doesn't miss it. He just moves forward, colder, sharper, untouchable. People around him notice the change. They call him distant, detached, emotionless, but they don't realize that what they're seeing isn't the absence of feeling. It's the result of a man who's learned through experience that expecting too much from people is a setup for disappointment. And so, his idealism doesn't just die, it's carved away, piece by piece, until there's nothing left but reality. Number 4, the emotional budget cuts strategy. Emotional. No man starts out emotionally cold. He simply runs out of reasons to care. Sigma males learn one brutal truth about life. Emotions are expensive. Every ounce of care, empathy, and vulnerability they give away costs them something. At first, they spend freely, offering loyalty to friends, patience to lovers, and understanding to anyone who needs it. They assume the emotional investments will come back around, but what they discover is that most people only take without giving back. Slowly, the numbers stop adding up. The emotional bank starts running dry. The more they give, the less they get in return. They forgive betrayals that were never apologized for. They comfort people who would leave them in a heartbeat. They show loyalty to people who only see them as an option. One day, they wake up and realize they've been running an emotional charity for years, and it's left them bankrupt. That's when the budget cuts begin. First to go is empathy for sob stories. Not because they've stopped caring entirely, but because they've realized most people only use their problems to gain sympathy, not to change. Next goes vulnerability. It's not that they never feel pain, it's that they've learned most people only ask how you're doing to feel better about themselves, not because they actually want to help. Finally, they cut off warmth, that automatic kindness they used to give without question. They become selective with their energy, giving it only to those who truly deserve it. Everyone else gets a cold, polite distance. What makes this transformation so dangerous is that it's completely logical. There's no bitterness, no hatred, just cold, hard self-preservation. Why keep spending emotions on people who never pay back? Why keep opening doors for people who only leave once they've taken what they wanted? By the time the emotional budget is fully cut, the Sigma male isn't even angry. He's efficient. He gives nothing to those who give nothing. He becomes emotionally self-sufficient, needing no one and owing no one. People mistake it for heartlessness. But the truth is simple. He's just done giving what the world never deserved in the first place. Number 5. The trap of zero expectations. At first, a Sigma male gives people the benefit of the doubt. He believes in loyalty, trusts words, and assumes that when someone makes a promise, they actually mean it. But life has a way of repeatedly proving him wrong. He starts noticing the patterns. Friends who disappear the moment they're no longer benefiting, lovers who only stay as long as things are exciting, people who talk about honesty but lie when it suits them. Each disappointment cuts deeper than the last, not because he's weak, but because he actually expected something better. So he adjusts, he starts lowering his expectations. At first it's subtle. He stops assuming friends will stick around. He stops believing that love is unconditional. He stops expecting people to do the right thing simply because it's right. When someone betrays him, he isn't even surprised anymore. When a relationship falls apart, he just shrugs. When someone breaks a promise, he doesn't even react. Eventually, he lowers his expectations to zero. And this is where the real transformation happens. Because when a man reaches a point where he expects nothing from anyone, not loyalty, not honesty, not love, he stops feeling anything at all. It's not depression. It's not anger. It's just absolute emotional silence. He doesn't get hurt anymore, not because he's invincible, but because there's nothing left to break. The people around him notice the change. They say he's distant, that he doesn't seem to care, that nothing excites him, nothing bothers him. What they don't realize is that this isn't a personality shift. It's a survival mechanism. He has learned that the only way to never be disappointed again is to never expect anything in the first place. And so his heart doesn't just turn cold, it turns off completely. Number 6. The brutal realization that pain is a one-way street. At first, a Sigma male doesn't question it. He's the one people turn to when life gets messy. Friends unload their problems on him, knowing he won't judge. Lovers lean on his strength, finding comfort in his calm. Even strangers sense his reliability and seek his advice. He doesn't mind. It feels natural to be the steady presence in a world full of emotional chaos. But then, something happens. He struggles. Maybe life hits him with an unexpected loss. Maybe he faces betrayal. Maybe for the first time he feels like he's drowning. And so for once, he does something rare. He reaches out, and that's when the brutal truth hits him. No one is there. The same people who cried on his shoulder are suddenly too busy. The ones he supported through breakdowns now offer him nothing but generic platitudes. Stay strong. You'll get through it. They say the words, but there's no real effort, no true support. It's as if his pain is an inconvenience, something they acknowledge out of obligation before moving on with their lives. That's the moment he understands. Pain is a one-way street. People love to take, but they rarely give. They admire his strength, but they never think about what it costs him. They assume he doesn't need help because he never asked for it before. And so when he finally does, they fail him completely. This realization isn't just disappointing, it's life-altering. He doesn't lash out. He doesn't beg for attention, he simply adjusts. From that moment on, he stops being available. Not out of spite, not out of bitterness, just out of pure logic. If the world has proven that his pain doesn't matter, then why should he keep carrying the pain of others? And so, he locks that part of himself away. The silent rock that once supported everyone hardens into something colder, something untouchable. He doesn't offer his energy freely anymore. He doesn't listen to problems that aren't his own. People notice the shift. They say he's changed, that he used to care more. What they don't realize is that he didn't change. Their absence did. Number 7. The death of reciprocity. At first, a Sigma male plays by the rules. You give, you get. It's simple. He listens when a friend needs advice, assuming the friend will be there when he needs the same. He supports his partner unconditionally, believing love is a two-way street. He helps others without hesitation, trusting that goodwill returns in some form. But over time, he starts to notice something disturbing. The favors aren't returned. The support is never mutual. The emotional investments he makes vanish into the void. He realizes most people don't see relationships as an exchange. They see them as an opportunity to take as much as possible while giving as little as necessary. He tests the theory. He stops initiating conversations, stops offering help, stops reaching out first. And just like that, everything goes silent. The people who once valued him disappear the moment he stops serving their needs. The friendships he thought were real fade away when he no longer makes the effort. The love that seemed deep evaporates when he stops overextending himself. That's when reciprocity dies. It doesn't make him bitter, it makes him aware. He stops believing in equal exchange because experience has proven that for most people, fairness is just a concept, not a practice. So he makes a decision. He stops giving. Not out of pettiness, not out of revenge, just out of self-respect. He withdraws his emotional currency from circulation. No more free support, no more one-sided loyalty, no more giving without receiving. If someone values him, they'll prove it. If they don't, they'll fade away like everyone else who was only there for the benefits. People notice the change. They call him cold, distant, different. But he's not different. He's just done playing a game where only one side ever wins. Number 8. The emotional ghost mode response. Most people have breaking points, moments when they snap, argue, or demand answers. Sigma males, they don't bother. When someone crosses the line, betrays their trust, or drains them one time too many, there's no dramatic confrontation, no heated exchange, no warning. They simply disappear. At first, they might have given second chances. They might have explained themselves, hoping the other person would understand. But experience has shown them that most people don't listen. They just wait for their turn to talk. Arguments are pointless. Emotional pleas are a waste of breath. If someone disrespects them once, they'll do it again. So instead of reacting, they vanish. No texts, no closure, no explanation. Just radio silence. One day they're there. The next, it's as if they never existed. The person left behind doesn't even get the satisfaction of knowing why. It's just emptiness where the Sigma male used to be. Over time, this response becomes refined, effortless, surgical. It's not done out of pettiness or revenge. It's just a natural consequence of treating them poorly. If someone proves they don't deserve access, they lose it. Forever. What makes it so devastating is that Sigma males never return. When they cut someone off, they do it with absolute finality. No lingering emotions, no second guessing. The other person might be left confused, hurt, or desperate for answers, but the Sigma male, he's already moved on, unfazed. And that's the real power of ghost mode. It's not about being cruel. It's about sending a message without saying a single word. You no longer exist in my world. Number 9. The unforgiving memory bank. Sigma males don't just move on from betrayal, they document it. Most people forgive and forget, eager to give others another chance. They tell themselves it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, or a moment of weakness. But a Sigma male, he doesn't have that luxury. When someone lies to him, he doesn't just hear the words. He remembers the exact tone of voice, the way their eyes shifted, the hesitation before the sentence finished. When someone betrays him, he doesn't just feel the sting. He records every detail. The moment it happened, the excuses that followed, the way they acted as if nothing had changed. He doesn't dwell on it. He doesn't seek revenge. He simply files it away. At first, this mental archive is small, but over time it grows into an unforgiving vault of experience, a collection of every reason why he shouldn't trust easily, why he shouldn't be vulnerable, why he should always stay one step ahead. Eventually, it changes the way he interacts with people. He no longer listens to words, he watches patterns. He no longer believes in apologies. He believes in repeated behavior. He no longer expects loyalty, he expects self-interest. And once that vault is full, there's no going back. People wonder why he seems so detached, so cautious, so unshakable. It's because he's seen it all before. He knows how the story ends because he's read the script 100 times. So when someone asks why he's so distant, why he doesn't trust, why he never lets anyone in, the answer is simple. I remember everything. Number 10. The psychological scar tissue effect. Pain changes people. Some break under it. Some heal and move on. But Sigma males, they adapt. Every betrayal, every disappointment, every moment of emotional pain leaves a mark. At first, they feel it deeply. The sting of dishonesty, the ache of abandonment, the frustration of wasted loyalty, it all cuts into them like a blade. But unlike most people, they don't just get over it, they grow over it. Over time, those wounds don't heal, they harden. Each scar becomes a layer of armor, reinforcing the lesson learned. Don't trust too easily, don't get attached, don't expect reciprocity. Every painful experience adds another layer, making their emotional skin thicker, tougher, more resistant. At some point, they stop feeling the cuts altogether, not because they've stopped experiencing life, but because they've built psychological scar tissue so dense that nothing gets through. They don't react the way they used to. What would have devastated them before now barely registers. People call them cold. They mistake the lack of visible pain for a lack of feeling. But what they don't realize is that it's not emptiness, it's invincibility. By the time a Sigma male has endured enough, his emotional resilience is unshakable. Love doesn't blind him, betrayal doesn't shock him, manipulation doesn't work on him. He doesn't wear his scars like wounds. He wears them like armor. And once that armor is in place, no one can hurt him ever again. Number 11. The final stage, indifference, becomes their default state. There was a time when a Sigma male felt everything deeply. Betrayal stung, dishonesty angered him, and disappointment left a mark. But after experiencing the same cycles of false promises, broken trust, and one-sided relationships, something inside him shuts down for good. He doesn't explode. He doesn't argue. He doesn't seek revenge. He simply stops caring. At first, this indifference starts as a defense mechanism, an emotional firewall against the world's constant letdowns. But over time, it becomes his natural state. He no longer wastes energy on people who wouldn't do the same for him. He no longer reacts to things that once triggered him. He sees the same patterns, the same behaviors, the same predictable outcomes, and instead of getting frustrated, he feels nothing at all. This is the final stage. True cold-heartedness isn't about anger, it's about absence. He doesn't love, he doesn't hate. He simply observes, detached and unaffected. And here's what makes it so powerful. People can't manipulate someone who doesn't care. They can't control him through guilt. They can't provoke a reaction, and they can't use his emotions against him. He has none left to give. Some say he's heartless, but the truth? His heart didn't die. It just learned to protect itself, and now nothing and no one can touch him again. The transformation of a Sigma male into a cold-hearted enigma isn't sudden. It's a slow, methodical process shaped by betrayal, disappointment, and hard-earned wisdom. He doesn't wake up one day and decide to stop caring. The world teaches him to. At first, he gives freely. His loyalty, his trust, his emotions. But experience grinds away at his idealism. He watches as people take without giving, lie without guilt, and leave without hesitation. He learns that pain is a one-way street, that emotions are just another form of currency, and that most relationships are built on convenience, not connection. So he adapts. He cuts off unnecessary emotional expenses. He withdraws his trust. He perfects the art of disappearing. And as the scars harden into armor, he becomes something untouchable. A man who no longer plays a game where the rules were never fair to begin with. People call him distant, unfeeling, ruthless, but they don't understand. He didn't choose to be this way. The world made him this way, and now he walks through life with a heart that no longer bleeds, a mind that no longer trusts, and a presence that no one can control. Not because he lost himself, but because he finally became everything experience taught him to be. Gentlemen, if this video resonated with you, don't just leave, take control. Like the video to show you're built differently. Comment your thoughts. Have you experienced this transformation? Share this with someone who needs to hear the truth. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss content that tells it like it is. This channel isn't for the weak. It's for those who see the world clearly and move on their own terms. Join the ranks.